डिस्कनेक्ट होगा नहीं।
नहीं है डॉक्टर आइज, नहीं वो है, उनके दोनों ऑडियो वीडियो दोनों अनम्यूटेड है। हेलो हेलो
Sir, sir, is everything fine? Sir, everything is fine.
Yeah, but Dr. Aich, who is the hosting, his audio video unmuted, but he is not able to answer. Dr. Aich, are you there? I have to call Dr. Aich. Dr. Aich से सब मैं लगाता हूँ, क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रही है?
Very good morning to all of you. Can you hear our sound?
Yes, sir. Yes.
अभी ये दवाई चलाई थी। अभी आराम मिला कुछ? देखो अभी ये क्या है, ये आपको चालू। डॉक्टर नायक, कैन यू हियर माय साउंड?
Yes, Doctor, I am hearing. I can see you as well as I will hear. I am hearing. मतलब सुन रहा हूँ आपको।
नहीं,
आपकी आवाज आ रही है। Hello.
Dr. Nayak, can you hear my sound?
Yes, Dr. Nilesh. Yes.
A very good morning to all of you. I am pinning our founder secretary, Dr. Nilesh Sharma. Yeah. एक सेकंड, थोड़ी मीटिंग कर लो ना कोई। Dr. Nilesh Sharma. Hello. Yeah, I am here. Dr. Nilesh, I am here. So we all.
Can we wait for a minute? Let Dr. Aich re-enter. Dr. Aich got disconnected again, so let him come back again.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Dr. Aich. Are you back now? Please do not receive any phone now. Okay, that will be causing problem. And
yes, sir.
I am making you host now.
Okay, sir.
So Dr. Nilesh Sharma, please. Continue and I am here. Don't worry. Dr. Nilesh Sindhu. Sir, for information to all of you, the whole this Zoom is also live on Facebook page of Association of Mastitis and Loas News also.
Yeah.
Mastitis.
Yes, that's good.
Meeting. They can also join there. Please ask your friends and other people to give their comments for their attendance. Okay. Yeah, through Facebook.
Okay.
I can see the participants, and it's by the name of Sarika Sharma. It's appearing on the screen by the name of Sarika.
Okay, sir. I'm so sorry. I admitted that. Dr. Aich, since you are the host now, can you just please unmute the name of Sarika Sharma, isn't it, sir? Yeah, Sarika Sharma. Can you please unmute? I think.
Okay, Dr. Sarika Sharma.
The video is live now on Facebook, so no informal comments, sir, please.
Dr. Dr. Abhi Sharma has entered in the name of Sarika Sharma, and he has unmuted his audio and video. He is very well there. I think we can start now.
It's okay
Should
from
I
my side.
name him?
It's okay from technical side.
Doctor, can all of you please mute yourself, except for the speaker, sir, and Dr. Aish, please. All of you, please mute yourself. Dr. Aish, mute everyone, please, except for speaker, sir, and yourself. And Dean, sir. Dr. Aish, I think you can start now. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Aish? Hello. Hello. All are requested to please mute yourself. So a sincere request to all of you, please mute yourself, except for the speaker, sir, and the host and Dean, sir. Please mute yourself. I have to take the names in that case if you're not muting it, so it won't look nice. Dr. Anil Patil, please mute yourself. Dr. Babul Pal. Dr. Aish. Dean, sir, shall we start, sir?
Yes.
Dr. Nayak. Dr. Nayak.
Dr. Jyoti Bhagat, please mute yourself.
Sir.
I think Dr. Aish, I don't know what's problem with him. He's again not audible.
Sir, absolute कर दीजिए sir, please.
So shall we start now?
Yes, sir. Sir, absolute कर दीजिए sir, please.
शेयर कहाँ से करेंगे?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
On the occasion of the World Milk Day, from the country which is the highest producer of milk in the world, and we all are proud of it, being people involved in the field of veterinary animal science, who has contributed in the last 70 years to take India to that position. I congratulate all of you and convey my good wishes to all of you. On behalf of Nanaji Deshmukh Veterinary Science University, Jabalpur, and Association of Mastitis, and on behalf of the organizing committee, we welcome Dr. Amish Sharma, sir, who has come up with his director as SSAI, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, to be with us this morning on a very important issue, which will be concerning to all the consumers in the post-COVID and during COVID-19, and that is regarding the food safety. There already had been a number of rumors in the market, which has adversely affected the consumption of animal products, both milk, meat, and poultry. And it is the right time now that we have to advise our farmers, our owners, for the clean milk production and what SSI looks for to them. Request Dr. Naren Nayak.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, I am very thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. S.P. Tiwari, sir, and respected Dean Dr. Mehta, sir, to give me opportunity to introduce the speaker under this one-day workshop jointly organized by Nanaji Deshmukh Veterinary Science University and Association of Mastitis. I feel immense pleasure to introduce about the dynamic personality, man of simplicity, and our beloved and respected senior, Dr. Amit Sharma sir. Currently, Dr. Amit Sharma sir is serving as Director at Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. This is the great honor of us that he is alumni of Veterinary College, Jabalpur. Since student life, he is involved in various activities at national as well as international levels. He started his career as veterinary assistant surgeon from Pithoragarh. Thereafter, he joined as assistant director, then joint director at Export Inspection Council, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. He has completed MBSc and MBA with gold medal. For past more than 15 years, he is involved in addressing food safety issues at national as well as international levels, interacting with importing regulatory authorities and taking up SPS TBT issues to facilitate trade. Dr. Sharma has a wide experience of standard setting at national as well as international level. Food safety audit of meat, poultry, dairy, fish, feed, and processed product establishment, etc. for domestic as well as export. He is a certified ISO 22000, ISO 17020. He has several articles to his credit and has received national awards. Thank you very much, sir. Now I invite to our Honorable Dean, Dr. Mehta, sir, to welcome our respected speaker, Dr. Amit Sharma, sir. Mehta, sir, please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Nayak. Dr. Amit Sharma, Director, FSSAI. I welcome on behalf of the organizing committee, myself, Dr. M.K. Mehta, Dean, Veterinary College, Mahu. So, I respectfully welcome Dr. Amit Sharma and the topic, food safety standards and initiatives for dairy sector. This is very important topic, and I hope that the vast experience of Dr. Amit Sharma will be of immense importance, immense use for all the audience listening to Dr. Amit Sharma in today's webinar. I welcome again, and I please request to start the lecture. Dr. Amit Sharma, please.
Can I interfere for a minute, please? Dr. Ranjit Ayach, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so Dr. Ranjit Ayach will be hosting the meeting, and Dr. Amit Sharma, sir. All other request you to please keep the audio and video muted. Please. It disturbs the background, disturbs. Please. Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Gurbir Singh, please do it. Dr. Ayach, I will video host.
Okay, sir.
So we can let's hand over this screen to Dr. Amit Sharma, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dean Dr. Mehta, Dr. Sharda, and Dr. Nayak, and my alumni seniors from different veterinary colleges and the research institutes It's really a proud moment for us. And as we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of World Milk Day, the Food Safety Authority is also ushering into a new liberalized digital era of food licensing. And today we are launching our new online platform for licensing and registration of the food business operators, that is FOSCOPS, which will completely replace the age-old food licensing and registration portal. Of course,
So they charge a fee.
I can hear someone also speaking. So, of course, the COVID has brought us and it has forced us to innovate and experiment the novel methods of communication for the interaction and for the capacity building activities. And I'm sure that we may have to continue with this kind of workshops through online mode in future as well. And at Food Safety Authority, we have utilized this opportunity of the lockdown period to train more than 25,000 participants across all the stakeholder range using these web conferences, webinars, workshops, trainings and all. We all acknowledge the importance of livestock and the importance of dairy sector for the nutritional security as well as for the livelihood and providing the livelihood to the vast sector of the people in the country and globally. And although we are the largest producer of milk, but it's a fact that we are also the largest consumer of the milk. I will just share some slides with the participants so that they can have a better idea. And since we are the largest consumer of the milk, this is the reason that several countries are looking at us to supply the dairy products because they have the surplus and we have the requirement. And I'm just trying to find out that how to share the presentation so that it will help. But during this COVID-19, we have, even before the WHO declared novel coronavirus as a pandemic, we have issued an advisory that it is not spreading through the food and food contact material. Can you see the slides?
Yes, it will take one. Yeah, it's there.
Yes, sir.
The food safety has been of paramount importance. I was working in the Ministry of Commerce, and there we have realized that nowadays it has become a model for the economic diplomacy in the international trade. The food safety may be for the pesticides, genetically modified organisms.
All participants, please.
For the use of pesticides or the antibiotics or some allergens. But why they are more important is that while food safety contaminant travels at a speed of light, but the food safety news travels faster than the sound and light. At the click of a button, the food safety related issues is across the globe through the mode of internet. And this spread of food safety contaminant news has a cascading, spiraling effect on the international trade. We have seen in the past that when one consignment of the tuna scraps was exported from India to USA, which resulted in a fact that 34 children fell ill and there were 2 casualties. Immediately, the countries which were importing from India, they also put some restrictions saying that since US is trying to put some restrictions, so we will also put some restrictions. So this news is having a cascading reaction on the international trade in a very big way. And similarly, when a couple of years back in 2017, when Russia approved 2 dairy plants for export from India, and with this news itself, we have seen that several other countries, especially in the Middle East, they have increased their import orders from India, saying that when Russia is importing, when US is importing, so they don't want to impose any new regulatory restrictions on India, and directly they started importing dairy products from India. As of now, we are exporting to more than 65 countries the dairy products. And internationally, we have seen that when the global markets are open largely because of dismantling of protectionist regimes of high tariffs or the quantity restrictions for select commodities, emphasis is laid on the safety and quality of the products. The WTO agreement on the application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, it recognizes the standards which are elaborated by the Codex Alimentarius, and it also encourages the member countries to harmonize their domestic standards with international standards. Now, although all the member countries are a part of the Codex meetings, but still they have a freedom that they can have a standards which are stringent than the Codex standards, provided they can demonstrate that it is science-based. And this is a reason that we have seen a strong interplay between the tariffs and the standards. And we have observed over the years that the tariffs and the standards or the sanitary and phytosanitary measures imposed by the several countries, they're inversely proportional. You can have some idea with the next slide if it is visible to you, clearly legible to you. We have seen that when the import duties were to the tune of 40% or 50%, then countries don't bother to protect their domestic industry. And there are very limited SPS issues or non-tariff measures were imposed by them. But when tariff started reducing, and when they come down to around 10 or 20% of the import duty, we have seen that the non-tariff based measures were being imposed, the SPS measures were being implemented and imposed by the importing countries. How to do it full screen. However, when the tariffs approached almost to zero, negligible, that was a time when several countries they started having their own domestic regulations, which were acting as a stumbling block for the international trade, and they acted as a barrier for several countries. So we have seen that the number of SPS measures imposed has increased significantly as the tariffs are reducing globally. Now, previously, we were primarily relying on the end product testing and the criteria for the several products, and that was the time when the MRLs were being set up for food products, including dairy products, for the residues of antibiotics, pesticides, heavy metals, additives, microbial limits were being set up, and product was tested at the point of exit or entry. And then it was declared as a compliant or non-compliant. However, when the tariffs were going down, there was a shift from testing of the product at the point of entry to the systems approach. And that was a time when food safety-based HACCP came in the picture, and it was mandated that all the manufacturing units should implement the FSMS-based HACCP. When the tariffs were further reduced and several countries entered into a mutual recognition agreement, and we also entered into several free trade agreements with the group of countries or the block of the countries, there was a shift from the manufacturing unit to the primary production centers. And that was a time when the developed countries, specifically, they started insisting on the good agricultural practices, good veterinary practices, good husbandry practices, good hygienic practices, good manufacturing practices, etc. So continuously we have witnessed that how the shift has been there from end product to the manufacturing unit to the primary production as the tariffs are coming down. And then, of course, there were process and the production controls which were being emphasized by the several economies. And this was a time when the role of competent authority gains center stage. And when they started doing the approvals of the manufacturing establishments, whether they are domestic or overseas manufacturer, that was a time when they started insisting on the certification of the establishments. And then instead of only going for the food safety based HACCP, the emphasis was laid on the risk based assessment methods. So risk based inspections were brought in the picture, whether it is inspection of the establishment or inspection of the importing or exporting consignments. And as the countries gear up to these requirements, there are more and more requirements were pitched in for the packaging related issues, the labeling and the claims requirement for the food safety. And of course, traceability up to the primary production center was always at the center stage. So implementation at the farm level and what kind of controls we were trying to emphasize at the to ensure the traceability for both backward and forward. When you look at the development in some of the importing countries, which are the major importers for us as well, we realize that USA has drastically shifted its approach a couple of years back when they implemented and when they approved the food safety modernization into US. And this, after FISMA, we have observed that the food safety has become an important principle in the diplomatic relationship with the foreign countries. And if you all must have heard about the famous trade-off which we have done with the US for the export of Alfonso mango with the import of Harley Davidson. It's quite famous everywhere. For Australia, we have seen that because of their geographical location, they are quite concerned about their biosecurity, and so the import risk analysis is being done. They keep on emphasizing on the testing of the viruses that they importing, and because of their geographical freedom for certain viruses. The Japan is specifically concerned for the pesticide residues, and somehow European Union has come forward with a very comprehensive and exhaustive regulations on the food safety, the hygiene, the standards for the animal health, welfare, protocol, HACCP, certification, and the import alerts. So they have a general food law, which they call it as 178/2002, and then there are specific food laws for the dairy, 852 for the official control, 854, and then microbiological criteria and so on. However, with such developments in the importing countries or such stand taken by the importing regulatory authorities, we have a challenge in conforming to the requirement. Just take for a case of a processing dairy establishment who has to comply to the domestic regulation as per Food Safety and Standards Authority of India regulatory framework. And when they intend to export to EU, they have to follow the EU standards. And when they intend to export to Egypt, he has to follow the Egyptian standards, and for Saudi Arabia, he has to follow the Saudi Arabian standards. Somehow, these standards are not aligned to products, and they are not aligned together. So, the role of the competent authority for the official control becomes very much crucial. And since some of these countries has developed their standards, which are much more stringent and stricter than the standards laid down by the three member sisters like Codex, OIE, and IPPC. So it becomes very difficult to implement, but of course it's a challenge for all the exporting regulatory authorities. The residue monitoring program is quite important, especially when we try to export to EU. And India has been implementing the National Residue Control Program for dairy products for almost 14 years now, maybe more than 14 years, 15 years. And up to 2018, our residue monitoring program was not approved by the European Union. So when we try to export dairy products to EU, they have a two-stage process. One is that our residue monitoring program shall be approved, number one. And then their hygiene team used to visit us, audit our official control and the processing establishment for the infrastructure and equipment facilities and the hygiene implementation. And then they approved it. So up to 2017, our residue monitoring plan was not approved. And every 2 or 3 years, they used to visit. They suggest something, we keep on implementing it. But in 2017, they had a requirement that the number of samples to be collected for residue monitoring should be in proportion to the total throughput of milk production in the country. Now look at the situation in India, where we hardly export 2 or 3% of the total milk production because we have a huge domestic consumption as well. In that case, doing a residue sampling for the entire country just for the export to the European Union was very much extremely difficult. But still EU insisted it. And we, as per the regulatory requirement, it says that for every 20,000 liters of milk, one sample has to be drawn. Now when we are producing crores of liters of milk, it turns down to several thousands of samples in a year. So as of now, we are having only one plant left, which is approved by India, but not by EU for export to the European Union. But the ball doesn't stop here only. This I am talking about export to EU, but when we talk about export to Russia, again they have a different residue monitoring plan. So they have different parameters and the different limits. And when I talk about export to Japan, again they have different residue monitoring requirements. So one country has to follow, and plus Food Safety Authority, I will discuss in later part of my discussion that we have also come up with our own residue monitoring program. So these are the challenges which the dairy sector always in compliance for the domestic as well as for the import purposes. Traceability is an issue because in Indian situation and in other countries, the traceability has a different meaning. And I will not go into the details for the biosecurity and the environmental contaminants for the dairy sector, but I will just jump to the National Food Control System just for the reference. That for the in India, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India is responsible for the domestic and the import market under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And for export purposes, we have exportation under Ministry of Commerce and Industries. The Food Safety and Standards Act was passed by Parliament in 2006, and the purpose of this act was to consolidate the laws relating to food for laying down the science-based standards and regulate the manufacture, storage, distribution, sale, and import of food products to ensure availability of safe and wholesome food. Now, this has a very peculiar reference, the safe and wholesomeness of the food which authority has to ensure, which was not there in the pre-FSI regime. We have seen that before 2006, the main focus of authorities was on the prevention of adulteration in the milk products, and that's why we were having a milk and milk product order. However, after the authority was established, the main focus was on the safety. And when I say that wholesomeness of the food, it also refers that food should also be nutritious, and that is the reason that we have brought in a regulation for the fortification of the food products, including the milk. And today in the afternoon at 2:30, we are having an interaction with the major state governments to ensure that how the fortified milk can be implemented in the government setup to ensure that micronutrient deficiency can be controlled among the school-going children. And for the purpose of achieving this, the idea is to implement through the setting up of the comprehensive food regulations and the standards, specify the practices to be followed by the establishments, the procedures to be followed by the regulators and the enforcement. And you may be now aware that several of the existing pre-authority era, the orders and the regulations were subsumed in the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006. The food safety standards were notified in October. The revised standards were notified in October 2017. So I will not go into the detail for that. They are available on the site itself. But then we have the standards for the probiotics under Food Safety and Standards, food or health supplements, nutritious products, food for special dietary uses and for special medical purposes. And the standards for milk protein concentrates, whey protein concentrate, colostrum and colostrum products were notified in February 2018. Being a new body just completing almost 10 years of its existence, the standards are being evolved continuously as per the present practices, as per the request we receive from the industry and the different regulatory authorities. Recently we have approved the standards for the dairy pyramid powders. And of course, as I said, that for the fortification of food, the regulation was notified, which includes that the dairy products may also be, the milk shall also be fortified with the micronutrients. And several brands have come forward with the fortification, and they are utilizing the plus F logo. Consumer is aware about the products. The underlying principle for laying down these standards was to harmonize them with the international food standards, primarily which is the Codex. So continuously we are trying to harmonize our standards and the limits of the Codex. Moreover, as the need evolves, we have tried to specify the general aspects of the milk and the milk products, like for their own definitions, the provisions for the use of dairy terms, specific labeling provisions, and the conditions for using the dairy terminology for the food products. So there is a clear-cut differentiation between the dairy product and the non-dairy product. Now we are coming forward with the standard for the dairy analogs, because a parallel industry is going on, which is using the dairy substitutes and then projecting it in a similar way. Now, this was a concern for us because there is no safety issue, but of course it's a issue of the consumer preference and disguising the dairy analogs as a dairy products. So we are coming up with it. Using the term milk has also been established that unless the product contains any dairy ingredient into it, they cannot use the term milk. And we are coming up with a stringent enforcement and the regulation for it. Like for the products like soya milk, almond milk, which are easily seen in the market. So milk term is specifically to be used only if it contains the dairy product. So they can use the term soya-based beverages, soya-based drink, but they should not use the term milk for it. Of course, they are available, but we are enforcing that they should not be. They should change their label. We have also identified certain standards for the new dairy products like camel milk or camel milk, the dairy vitamin made from the camel milk, the edible lactose, and have also revised the fat and FNF standards for the cow and sheep milk to make it uniform for the country. The major regulations which define the maximum residual limits is the Food Safety and Standards Contaminant, Toxin and Residue Regulation, which defines the MRLs for metal contaminants, crop contaminants, naturally occurring toxins, pesticides, antibiotics, aflatoxin, melamine, and other pharmacologically active substances in the dairy product apart from other food products. The Food Safety and Standards Prohibition and Restriction on Sales Standards, which says that the substandard or adulterated dairy products shall not be sold, and there are stringent penal provisions for it. The admixture of ghee or butter with the vegetable fat is not permitted. And recently we had a huge meeting in Maharashtra in which Nitin Gadkari was also interested because of lockdown. The surplus milk was available and it was being converted into the milk products. And it was a presentation that some restaurants or some street vendors, they are instead of using the butter, they are using the margarine, or they are mixing the margarine and the butter and then misleading the consumers. And then PMO is also involved, and so they have sought the comment from Food Safety Authority, the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, and the Ministry of Animal Husbandry, and the present status and how we are going to address this issue. Similar is the case for the ghee cannot be sold without AGMA certification, or milk products cannot be sold without BI certification. I don't know, but everyone has seen that all the milk, all the food products, it is mandated by the authority that they should have either veg logo, which is a green dot, or a brown logo, or red dot for the non-veg purposes. But milk, liquid milk, traditionally is considered as a vegetarian product, and that is the reason that only 3 products are exempted from this kind of denomination: the liquid milk, the milk powder, and the packaged drinking water, for which there is no veg or non-veg logo is required to be pasted on the label. Of course, it has been an issue of contention by several countries, and US has been continuously raising these issues at the WTO platforms, saying that when we have given this dispensation, we should allow the veg non-veg logo for the milk as well, or milk powder as well. And the animals which are fed with the animal origin protein, their products shall be labeled as a red dot, and those without animal origin protein, they should be labeled as a green dot. But we have been continuously rejecting their stand. We have a standard for the labeling, laboratory and sampling analysis, which specifies the sampling procedure for various food products, including the dairy products. And all the food dairy establishments, they are supposed to follow this in their in-house laboratory. They are supposed to follow this sampling and analysis protocol. Of course, we have a food safety and standards licensing and registration regulation. And as I said in the beginning, that the food licensing and registration system is being shifted from to FOSCOS, which is a new food safety compliance online portal. And there has been several easing out of businesses has been done in it. Just to brief you few examples, that previously the validity of a license for a FBO was for a period of 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years. Now we are proposing to issue a perpetual license, which does not require any renewal, provided the FBO continues every year, just like income tax return. They keep on filing us online their production return to us, which gives us an idea that the establishment or the licensee is alive and they are operating, they are functioning. In case any modification is required to be done in the license, the modification fees, previously it was same as for the license fee, but now it has been reduced to only 1,000 rupees. So lot of such easing out has been done in the new FOSCOS system, which has been launched from today itself. FSI has been conducting extensive training for this licensing system. So if any dairy establishment is also interested in understanding the procedure or process to follow in the new system, they can always send a query. They can send a SMS, or on the help desk they can raise a query and we can rope in them for the training purposes. There has been a special schedule 4 provision for the dairy products in our regulation. For the controls they have to exercise in the processing establishment. And of course, the food recall procedure are also there, which has to be followed by the dairy establishment. Now, all the dairy establishments, they have to monitor their self-compliance. And for that purpose, we have empaneled certain food safety auditing agencies, and they have to get themselves audited at least once in a year. So previously, we have given a time for 6 months for all the establishments, but because of this lockdown, this timeline from 30th June has been further extended for another 3 months. And the frequency of this food safety auditing is based on the risk associated with the establishment, which means that we are also coming up with the regulation in which if a dairy establishment which is considered as a high risk commodity is getting themselves continuously audited by a panel auditing agency and it is in compliance to our requirement, then that dairy establishment will be subjected to less official control by the food regulators. Which means that these food safety auditing agencies are an extended arm of the food regulator, and based on their report and the risk associated with the product and manufacturing, it will be subjected to lesser or higher frequency of the inspections. Of course, for the import, we have a separate regulation. Like for the import of dairy products, we have a specific requirement that exporting regulatory authority should certify that these products has not been obtained from the animals which has been fed the animal origin feed to them. Number one. Number two, the dairy product should not have animal-based rennet into it. And this is the reason that because of these two requirements, several countries are not able to export their products to India. Let's take the case of, say, US, which is finding it difficult to export milk powders to India. And for the EU, who is keen to export their products like cheese and all to India, they are unable to do it because EU is continuously uses only the animal-based rennet, while in India we do not use it. Of course, they have raised these issues at the WTO platform, and in March, when I was in Geneva, we defended our stand saying that it is our religious sentiments and we cannot compromise. And there is a provision in the codex also that religious sentiments, if they are uniformly applicable across the country, so we can have a regulation based on them. We have the guidelines for the online sale of dairy products, and as well as for the, as I said, that wholesomeness, nutritious, safe, and hygienic food to the school children. Just to ensure that the compliance of food safety regulatory authorities regulations and the standards are being followed by the food businesses, we have been taking the enforcement samples from the dairy establishments, and you can see the figures from the table that we have come across several samples, and the major issue lies with the misbranding of the products. And for that purpose, several criminal and civil cases has been launched, conviction has taken place, and penalties have been imposed. And as an outcome of this, the authority has established the steering committee and the district committee. The steering committee is at a state level, and district committee is at a district level with the following composition, which will monitor the working of these dairy establishments and the enforcement activity. I will just share my experience. Couple of months back before lockdown, we were getting almost half a page advertisement daily in the newspaper from one of the company called Country Delight, which continuously was advertising that their product is relatively safer without any adulteration as compared to the established brands available in the market. And they were marketing it, as if they are doing something to prevent adulteration. They are doing something that residues of antibiotics are not entering into the milk chain. Basically, they were trying to feed on the fear of the consumers that most of the milk which is available in the market is unsafe, and therefore they are offering a safer milk to the consumers. And that has flourished like anything. So we called them because it was a case of false claim made by the establishment. So we called these people, and it was a young chap passed out from an IIM. And we asked them that what extra you are doing which established dairies are not doing it. And we were surprised to hear, and that they said that, sir, we do not do anything extra. We are simply collecting the milk from the farmers, packing it, pasteurizing it, and then supplying it. Or packing it and supplying the raw milk to the consumers. So we issued a show cause, and then we warned them, and after that they stopped that kind of advertising. But that was a time when we realized that this kind of fear which is created by some of the business establishments to establish themselves among the consumers, saying that most of the milk available in the market is unsafe, so please come to us and my milk is free from all these things, which is not right. And for that purpose only, we have notified almost 183 laboratories across the country, which can be utilized for the testing for either for the adulteration or quality or the safety of the products. And under the Food Safety Act, we have a provision that if you have any doubt on any food product, whether dairy or non-dairy product, you can purchase that product from the market, obtain a receipt from the shopkeeper, send it to any of these laboratories for the testing purposes. If that sample is found non-compliant, the testing charges and the cost of that product will be paid by the authority directly. And now we are also coming up with a order that even if product is compliant, still we will pay the testing charges and the cost of the sample to the consumer. The effort is only to boost consumer confidence, and for that purpose only we have been continuously supporting the state governments for the upgradation of their laboratories. And we have also provided the food safety on wheels. It's a modified van which has a facility for testing for the dairy products in the van itself, and it can detect certain adulterants and test for certain quality parameters. And it has been quite successful. That the state government has been utilizing this food safety on wheels in the several hotspots for adulterants, and they're taking the sample, testing it then and there. The purpose is multi-pronged. One is to establish that food which is available in the market is largely safe, and second is it will act as a deterrent in case any person is intending to do any malpractice. And just to establish this, the last year we had a nationwide milk quality and safety survey, which covers almost 29 states, 7 union territories, 1,107 towns, and we collected more than 6,500 samples. The samples were tested then and there at the point of collection itself for some on field testing purposes, for some qualitative testing, and they were also tested for the safety of the product as for the presence of residues of pesticides, antibiotics, hormones, and all. The samples were also collected from the organized and unorganized farms. And if you can just have a look at this table, you will find that this table says that although 48% samples were found non-compliant, but 41% were non-compliant primarily for the quality issues. Now, when I say that quality issues, I will come later on, but only 5% were found non-compliant for the safety issues, and only 2% were non-compliant for both quality and the safety issues. And it was quite surprising for us even to believe that when we take the sample from the market from the established brands, the pouch milk which was collected by us, so the fat and SNF percentage which is mentioned on the label, it is also not complying to our regulatory requirements. And that was a major non-compliance which was observed. And you can see over here that non-compliance for fat was almost 20% and non-compliance for SNF was almost 33%. But broadly, we can say that the survey revealed that the largely the milk is relatively safer, but of course it is not complying for the quality parameters. Aflatoxin was the issue of concern for us, and almost 5.7% of the samples we could get the non-compliant samples for aflatoxin, and antibiotics for more than 1.2% samples. Amongst the antibiotics, we have realized that oxytetracycline was the main antibiotic which was detected. And in the field, since you all have done extensive work in the field also, that ignorance of the farmers about the withdrawal period is one of the major factors. Moreover, leaving aside the established farms, we do not have a tendency to keep a record of the treatment which is being offered to the animals. And sometimes the subtherapeutic dose of antibiotics to prevent the disease is also one of the reasons for that the antibiotics are appearing in the blood, appearing in the milk. We had a very typical situation when the foreign regulatory authorities they visited us, and I will not name the company, but it's one of the largest brand in the country. And when we asked them that what you do when you come across a tanker of milk which is found positive for antibiotics, how you proceed, whether you destroy that milk or you return it back. So while some of the establishments, they say that we have a policy to return it back, one or two establishments, they say that we put some coloring agent into the tanker so that it cannot be utilized. But they had to face several challenges into it, that we have to dispose of that milk, and then sometimes they have to go for the litigations into it. But one of the leading brands, they say that they simply dilute the milk with the compliant milk. Now, it was an eye-opening for us also, that how come such a multinational or a leading brand can do like that? Mixing a non-compliant milk with a compliant milk and making it a compliant, because now the contaminant has been diluted. So if you test it from a silo, you will never find that it is crossing the limits. But if you test it from the tanker, or if you test it at the bulk milk cooler, you will find non-compliances. So we have to not only educate our farmers or the entire milk chain, but continuously we have to enforce stringent penal measures for such big brands as well, so that antibiotics do not appear in the milk. And this is also one of the reasons that in 2009, when the EU visited us, and they also said that what kind of control you are exercising to ensure that medicines are not prescribed to the dairy farmer without any prescription, and prohibited antibiotics or therapeutic agents are not being used by them at the farmer level. We were having a tough time to demonstrate it to them. And to control the aflatoxin in the milk, Food Safety Authority, as I said in the beginning, that it has a mandate only for the food. But now we have come up with the regulation for controlling the feed also. And for controlling aflatoxin levels in the milk, we have issued an order that all the compound cattle feed should mandatorily be in compliance with the BIS standards, as of now temporarily, till FSI comes up with their own standards, and all the compound cattle feed manufacturers should be registered with the BIS. Now, this order has been widely contested at WTO level because it put several other countries in a very difficult situation. But still, we have to do it, and we are going ahead. And we have created a special working group for the cattle feed. We have come forward with a draft regulation and a guidance document for the feed processing establishment and draft regulation for the cattle feed as well. This is one area where I am requesting for the support, technical support basically from the veterinary colleges and the dairy scientists, so that we can utilize their expertise in this field. And since we have created this special working group, so some of the scientists are already there. But we propose that if anyone of you is having an interest and expertise in this field, please come forward so that we can utilize your expertise while we are framing these standards. Apart from this, I have one more submission that as on date, Food Safety Authority is having 16 scientific panels. These scientific panels comprises of the representatives from the research institutes, the colleges, universities, as well as from the government sector. The private sector is not represented in these scientific panels. I have seen that even some of the, leave aside few premier institutes like NDRI or IVRI or CFTRI, I could not find many representations in our scientific panel, even for the product of animal origin from the veterinary colleges. So my submission is that if any scientist or any the experts in the universities or the colleges, they are having any interest in any of the 16 scientific panels, please apply for it so that we can be benefited with your expertise, and we can have the standards made which are more practical in nature. And now, recently, come forward verified milk. No, and it was a shift from our traditional approach of regulating the food businesses. Now we have tried to approach and regulate the milk vendor, which is largely supplying the loose milk. So basically, it's a dabba wala. So it was launched a couple of months back before lockdown, and we are also trying to create awareness amongst the consumer. We are giving a special tag to this verified milk vendor also, so that the consumer will ask that from the vendor whether you are a verified milk vendor by Food Safety Authority, and this vendor will be held responsible for the kind of milk he is supplying. We will issue the food and the ID cards also to these vendors. So it is just an effort to address the raw milk safety and quality in the entire supply chain. Because for processed milk, we can hold the establishment responsible, but for the raw milk, we have to rope in these dabbawalas. Not dabbawalas, but these dudhwalas. And then we have a scheme for the food safety mitras, wherein we rope in the university and the college students. So basically, these food safety mitras are my champions, who are my advocates, whom I train on certain aspects, and in turn they verify in the field whether this dudhwala is working as per my requirement or not, whether this dudhwala can be given a tag or ID card for working as a verified milk vendor or not. So this is where we can work together and support and implement this verified milk vendor scheme. So the details are already available on the website. So this can be referred. As a on the pattern of the national level milk quality survey, we have also done a pilot scale surveillance of the milk products. It was piloted in the NCR region in the beginning, in which we have collected almost more than 1,000 samples from dairy products like khoya, barfi, paneer, chana, and all. And they were tested for the quality parameters, and they were also tested for the safety parameters for heavy metal, antibiotic, pesticides, and some of the heavy metals and foodborne pathogens. And the results were amazing, that we could not find much of the safety issues in the milk products, but there was gross compromise in the hygiene parameters. In the microbiological related non-compliances were observed in the dairy products. And there were more in the dairy products which are sold in the sweet shops. So that's the reason that we have started a scheme for audit of the sweet shops, sweet meats basically, and we are providing the funds to the state government so that they can do the audit. And we have the standard for it. Just to ensure that the were made and what are my requirements. So the dairy processing establishments, they should exercise some sort of self-monitoring on the kind of product they are making. And for that purpose, the scheme of testing and inspection has been launched. The order has been issued. And as per this scheme of testing and inspection, they have to get all the dairy processing establishment, they have to monitor and self-compliant throughout their production chain for their products which they are making. So the samples has to be tested for the raw milk as well as for the finished product which they are doing it. The schedule frequency has been defined in this order, and it was effective from 1st of January. So the kind of record which has to be maintained for all the dairy establishment was also notified. And after June 30th, the state government through their food safety officers, they will be doing the regular audit and the inspection for the organized dairy processing plant to evaluate the effectiveness of the implementation of the scheme of sampling, testing, and the inspection. And as I said that we have recognized notified certain laboratories also. And I know that certain colleges and the universities, they are also having state-of-the-art laboratories for the testing purposes. So if they have got the spare capabilities available with them, which can be utilized for the testing purposes, we can notify these laboratories of the departments as well, and we will pay for the testing purposes if they apply for the notification by the food safety authority. Notifying a government lab is not much of an issue to us as compared to notifying a private laboratory. This is just a screenshot of the FOSCOS, which is a food safety compliance system which has been launched today across the country. And now all the licensing and registration will take place through this portal only. It's quite user friendly. And as I said, that food safety has been providing the training to the businesses as well. So we have a training portal by the name of FOSTEC, Food Safety Training and Certification. It's mandatory that all the dairy establishments should have at least one food safety supervisor. So they have to obtain the training from our training partners. And I was in some of the veterinary colleges in the past, and I realized that veterinary colleges, they are also providing a lot of training to the industry. So, but their training is on the same pattern, but it is not linked to my FOSTEC training. So if we can join hands on the training, you can become my training partner. And then we can pool in the resources, we can standardize the training material, and then move ahead so that our reach can increase manifold. This is quite interesting that early this year we have launched a network of scientific cooperation for food and applied nutrition. Now this network is a network of all the majority of the scientific institutes in the country, whether they belong to the CSIR or the ICR institutes, or they belong to the ICMR institutes, or any individual research centers. So it's a network, and we have realized that different universities or the colleges, they have been doing certain research, they have been doing certain epidemiological surveys on their own, and that data remains in isolation. So everyone is working in silo. And sometimes when we try to put in and pull in the data available with different institutes, since the data has been generated on a different platform, so we find it difficult to provide the data to the international standard setting bodies like Codex and all. So this network provides an opportunity to do the research dedicatedly as required by the regulators, number one. We have created 8 groups. So one group would be working on the product of animal origin, another would be working on the product of plant origin, some on the genetically modified organisms, like that. And each group is having some 8 or 9 institutes, and then there are nodal officers into it. Amongst veterinary institutes, I remember that IVRI is one of the partner institute into it. I don't have idea whether NDRI is there or not. But it's a good opportunity for the institutes, the research centers to collaborate, because in this NetScoFan we provide funding also. So we provide fund for the salaries for the GRF students, GRF and SRF students, and we also provide some rolling fund for the regular research work which the institute is trying to do. However, the kind of research which has to be done by the institute has to meet the requirement of the food regulators. So the requirement will be shared by us, and you have to tell us whether you are in a position to do the research in that particular field or not, whether you are in a position to conduct the surveys, epidemiological surveys in that field or not, and then accordingly we sign MOU and then move ahead in that direction. Broadly, these are the issues which I wanted to highlight on this World Milk Day for the entire community, and I just like to thank the coordinators and the organizers for this program to bring me back to my alumni institute and interact with all my senior colleagues on this day. Thank you. If any question is there, we can discuss further on this. Thanks a lot.
Sir, please.
Yeah.
Sir, please unmute one by one so that we can ask the question. Please. अनम्यूट करते जाइए सर, एक एक करके आप पूछते जाइए सर, मैं बताते जाइए ना जो ऊपर से क्वेश्चन है.
हेलो हेलो, गुड मॉर्निंग सर.
Good morning.
Hello, so myself, Dr. Ratnadeep Singh from Sardar Kushinagar, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. Happy World Milk Day, and I want to know about the status of heavy metals in the milk.
Dairy vendors.
No, heavy metals, sir. Heavy metals in milk.
Oh. Okay. Shall I respond to each question, or shall I note down the question and then one by one I can respond? And participant can also write in their question in the chat box also.
Sir, you can respond one by one, and some person who want to ask the question, he will be unmuted and he will ask the question. You can reply, sir, accordingly.
So, doctor, regarding the presence of heavy metals in the milk, so far
Yes.
our survey is concerned, it was not much of a concern. However, we have observed in the individual surveys that the presence of heavy metal differs from region to region. We have notified the limits of heavy metals and some contaminants in our FSR 2011, notified again revised in 2017. But heavy metal was never a much concern in the dairy products. Generally, of course, in some region we found that certain dairy products they were rich in certain heavy metals beyond permissible limits. So that is a region specific, not general issue. And in export also, when we export, we have to test all the product for the heavy metals, antibiotic, pesticide, and the hormones. And we rarely come across a case wherein heavy metal has been found beyond permissible.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I can see one question from Dr. Vinod. What is the status of cooperatives milk that is being marketed? It's whether it is safest than other options available. Dr. Goswami, I should not pinpoint specifically at this point. But broadly, what we have observed that cooperatives are having a better control at the primary production center as compared to several established big brands. The reason being that these cooperatives, they collect the milk from the farmer directly on their own, while the dairy processing establishments, individuals which are in private sector, they collect the milk from the suppliers. But again, the quality of milk, I should not say that cooperative is better or private milk is superior, because it again depends that what kind of control you are exercising at the primary production center and what kind of control you are exercising at the point of entry when milk tanker is entering the dairy establishment. So it all depends. Another question I can see is what are the standards set for determining the hormonal residues in the milk and milk products? Presence of hormones in the milk has been defined, not in the milk products. And certain hormones are not permitted to be present beyond permissible limits. For domestic market, yes, they are aligned with the codex. And for export purposes, when we do the residue monitoring program, we do test the products for the presence of residues of the hormones. I can remember that only in one case in last couple of years I have come across wherein some estrogens were found beyond the permissible limit in one sample. But maybe because of sampling differences, that if I take a sample directly from the animal which has been recently administered the hormone, then I may find, but otherwise we could not find much issue into it. There are other questions. What will be the market for indigenous cow milk? Yes, indigenous cow milk is being publicized and marketed like anything. And now people are going to market the milk as a A1 and A2 milk as well. So they have a bright market in the country. But my submission is that rather than marketing any product as a indigenous from the indigenous origin, we should market the ingredient and the quality which it possesses. Another question regarding the withdrawal period for drugs for dairy products. So the withdrawal period for the drugs has been established by the CDSCO, and for the dairy products, drugs here it is not established. It is a standard for the 7 days, and for certain it is 14 days. So the withdrawal period for drugs has been established blanket by the drug authorities. I think people are questioning so fast that I am missing out some of the questions, but I can see that I have seen some literature presence of metals in milk and they are associated with including AMR. Can you explain this point? The presence of heavy metal has been reported in isolated cases. Yes, it's a fact. But when we talk about the presence of heavy metals in general, in the context of the country, so we could not find that heavy metal presence in the milk is a concern. But in isolated surveys, generally when we do it, they are the targeted surveys where we are having a doubt. They are the focus survey where we are having a doubt that product may be contaminated with the heavy metals. So there we of course find the heavy metals beyond permissible limit. And there are questions regarding the organic milk. So, or for organic milk, we have a separate regulation for organic products, and the organic milk has to be labeled with the Jaivik Bharat logo, which was launched by the Honorable Minister. But then it has to be aligned with my organic regulatory framework. So then only we can label the milk or milk product as an organic milk. There is one question. Kindly share some information about BIS standards. If you look at the history, the Bureau of Indian Standards primarily used to make the standards which are for the quality of the product. After the establishment of Food Safety Authority, the regulatory requirement is to comply to the requirement of the SSR. The BIS standards are voluntary in nature, so it is not mandatory for any dairy establishment to follow the BIS standards, except in case of milk powders and the baby food, which has been mandated by Food Safety Authority itself. So it is not mandatory for any dairy establishment to follow the BIS standard, but if they wish to have it, we can provide a copy of the standard and they can follow it. There is a concern of hormones in animal feed. Are the commercial feed regularly tested and certified for the hormone level? Now, as of now, now it's a very typical situation in India that animal feed is not regulated by any authority in the country as of now. So if we approach Animal Husbandry Department, they do not regulate animal feed. If we approach Food Safety Authority, it is not in my mandate because I regulate only the food. Just a few months back when we issued this order for the animal feed, because it is having a bearing on the food quality. So we issued the order that we will be regulating the cattle feed just to begin with. The animal feed, some of the feed manufacturers, they are doing the testing for hormones as well. But I don't remember anyone using hormones in the feed itself for the cattle feed I'm talking about. But as of now, it's all voluntary. So there is no mandatory regulation which mandates any feed manufacturer or any regulator to test the animal feed for the presence of hormones in feed. There is one question nowadays. People are getting concerned over use of animal products as an approach to go vegan. So how we can ascertain them the importance of milk? Milk traditionally has been considered as the safest and the nutritious product. That's the reason that we feed milk even to the children, to the child, the kids, infants, and everyone. The vegan people have a different approach. And that approach is concerned with the animal welfare. So the vegan people say that they should not use any product of animal origin. That's why they do not wear any leather shoes, leather jackets, leather belts. And they do not use any animal origin product like meat or the butter, ghee, and cheese and milk at all. So they have a perspective from the welfare perspective, not from the any safety or the quality of the products. If people does not go vegan because they are afraid of consuming milk. People go vegan because of the concern from the welfare aspect of the animals. Now, I can see one question regarding procedure for testing of milk to ensure its safety in terms of quality and other adulterants. Dr. Jain, I propose that we have notified the analysis method and the sampling protocols, that from where sample has to be drawn and how sample has to be drawn and how it has to be tested. Very regularly, we keep on providing training to the industry as well as to the students.
Excuse me, sir. Sorry to interrupt in between, sir.
Yeah.
Now time is not permitted to give the more answer. This is my humble request to all the participants. I will take all the questions from the participants and take the, and definitely I will mail to all the participants who have raised the question. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ranjit Ait for vote of thanks. Dr.
Thank
Ranjit
you,
Ait,
sir.
please.
A warm and graceful morning to all of you. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable event. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. First and foremost, on behalf of our organizing team, I, Dr. Ranjit Ait, Assistant Professor, College of Veterinary Science, and second, my gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Nanaji Deshmukh Veterinary Science University, Professor Dr. Tiwari, sir, for his inspiration and motivation. It is an opportunity for us to organize this event to celebrate the 20th anniversary of World Milk Day. Now, I would like to thank our valued speaker, Dr. Amit Sharma. Hello?
Yeah, you're audible.
Hello?
You're audible. You're audible.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I would like to thank our valued speaker, Dr. Amit Sharma, Director, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, for delivering a very informative lecture on food safety standards and initiatives for dairy sector. Thank you, sir, for sharing your vast experience and various information on food safety standards and regulations and enlighten our knowledge about these safety measures. Sir, we assure you that we will always try to comply these standards whenever we make food products of animal origin, and will guide manufacturing company about this standard measure. And simultaneously, we should also be vigilant when we will purchase product from the market. We are grateful to Dr. R.P.S. Bagal, sir, Dean Faculty, Nanaji Deshmukh Veterinary Science University, Jabalpur, for his words of encouragement. His able guidance has always encouraged us. Thank you him for his kindness, his interest, and continued support. My heartiest thanks to Dr. M.K. Mehta, sir, Dean, College of Veterinary Science and Animal Husbandry, Mahu, for his continued support, guidance, vision, and commitment. I'm thankful to all the participants for their overwhelming responses to attend this workshop. Today, we have been fortunate to have some eminent persons from academic and research institutions from all over the country. I am sure that the participants must have benefited by attending this workshop. My heartfelt thanks to the organizing team and all others who have worked hard to ensure that this event becomes a memorable success.